We're really blessed to have Joe. We're going to for Joe Davis. He is the San Diego Sheriff Chaplin and the coroner examiner, so he gets to see all the dead bodies in San Diego. So I do have to say, really quick, there are some pictures that are a little graphic. We edited a lot of them, so they're not too bad. But if you get a little squeamish, you can go in the lobby if you are feeling uncomfortable. There's not too many, but there are some graphic images. Joe deals with death on a daily basis, and one of the biggest things he deals with is with kids being stupid with drugs and alcohol. So he's going to scare the poop out of you right now. Get up for Joe Davis.
Well, thank you, Chris. Am I on? I don't know. You got it? You guys hear me okay? It is a privilege and a pleasure for me to be with you guys tonight. And I'll tell you why. You've been lied to a whole bunch. Maybe even by your own family, maybe even by your own friends, but you've been lied to. You're inundated with lies every day of your life, and it's really important for you guys to get a good grasp on being able to tell what's the truth and what's not the truth. And then you have enough knowledge to react appropriately so that your life can be healthy. There's also something called a lie of omission. You ever heard of that? It's where somebody knows the truth, but they don't tell you the truth. That's a lie of omission. I'll give you an example. Maybe some of you haven't been told that you were actually created by a God that loves you so much that he created you with a void in your heart that can only be filled by a relationship with him through his Son, Christ. You ever been told that? If you haven't been told that, you do have people in your life that know that, and if they haven't told you that, that's a pretty big lie of omission. There's a whole bunch of other ones, and I'm not going to get into lies of omission. I am going to speak truth into your life. Might be a little uncomfortable. It might be even painful. If you've experienced a loss in your family, I'll just tell you, just in beginning, that I'm terribly sorry for your loss. I'm not immune from that. You guys remember the body that was found in Santee Lakes a few years ago? That was my dad. You heard me. That was my dad. I got a call from my own office. Joe, come back to work. Okay, why? What's going on? Please, just come back. See, my dad made a bad decision, and he went out and he literally committed suicide in public, and somebody about your age had to go find him floating in Santee Lakes. I'm not immune from this. But one thing, and the reason why I put this together for you guys, is because we don't understand the potential implications of some of the decisions that we make that sometimes are based upon lies. Your friends will tell you it'll do this for you. It'll be good for you. It'll be positive and things like that, and then something really bad happens. You see, I've been at the coroner's office for 22 years now. When you guys do make a bad decision and it results in you literally dying, I'm probably the guy that's going to have to go knock on your mom and dad's door and tell them that something really bad happened to you. There's nothing like that, man. I'm telling you, there's nothing like that. So I am really happy that I get to talk to you guys tonight, because I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm going to give you reality. And you can take that and remember that next time you get tempted, because I know you're tempted every day. Maybe not with drugs and alcohol and things of that nature, but there's a whole bunch of temptation out there. And you got to be able to know the difference between a good decision and a bad decision. Now, I'm going to tell you why I'm here tonight on a Friday night. Every single one of you in here has two things going for them: tremendous value and tremendous potential. That's the truth. I'll prove it. When I'm done with this, I will prove it. In fact, I'm going to prove everything I tell you tonight because my opinion means absolutely nothing. And I'll ask you, did I prove it? And if I forget to ask you, you bring it up. And if I didn't prove it, well, I'll prove it. I will prove everything I'm going to tell you. But that's why, because you've got tremendous value and tremendous potential. But your potential, not your value, your potential is going to be based upon the decisions you make and the consequences of those decisions. Consequences aren't bad. Sometimes there's good consequences. But there's always going to be consequences for the decisions we make, both good and bad. But I just want to preface that I'm here to invest in you and invest in your future because you have tremendous value and tremendous potential. You feel me? You see where I'm coming from? For me, it's all good. I'm the only guy in the United States that does what I do. There's no other full-time chaplain for a corner in the United States. I'm not saying that bragging. I'm saying that I truly believe in my heart that God has placed me where I'm at so that I can simply help people. And I get to do things like this, which is the coolest thing, is just talk to you guys. So let's a lot of people don't understand the implications of drug use, and I'm going to explain it to you. See, a lot of people think we're just going to party, we're going to have fun. What happens when you ingest any kind of drug or even alcohol, that goes through your blood system. It gets into your blood system, it goes through your blood system, and it goes into your brain as part of the blood flow. You have a chemical reaction that happens in your brain. That's what makes you feel differently. Whether it's an upper, a downer, a sideways, it doesn't matter. It's a chemical reaction that happens in your brain. You can have a bad chemical reaction at any point in time that can cause you to be so debilitated that eventually, well, here's the problem. You know, I told you I'd prove everything. That brain up top, I hope that's what yours looks like. The brain on the bottom has been terribly abused by drugs. It will kill part of your brain, and you can visually see the damage. I'm not making this up. But here's the problem. Your brain is a tremendous tool God gave you. There's a lot of different functions in your brain. Every different part of your brain has a different purpose. So if you do drugs and it kills part of your brain, well, you can just go through the different functions of the brain. There's part of your brain that controls speech. If I'm going to abuse drugs like methamphetamine or things like that, then eventually my brain can get to the point where you can't. That might sound funny to you, but literally it can affect your speech. What if it affects your emotions? There's a part of your brain that controls your emotions. What if it affects your emotions? Now all of a sudden you got a temper that's really bad. You can't control it. You fly off the handle at the slightest things. No matter what anybody does, you've got this anger issue. And really you can say, well, it's not my fault because my brain is damaged, but yeah, it's your fault. You did the drugs. Nobody forced you to do them. Those are the consequences of the decision to do drugs. And I mean, again, you can see the damage that's been caused. There's a couple different ways to die. There's uppers, which are considered methamphetamine, cocaine, the things that are going to speed your heart rate up. And then there's downers. We'll talk about uppers first. The first way you can die is a cardiac arrhythmia. That can happen at any point in time where your heart's completely out of rhythm. You can't control it because it's happening in your brain, not necessarily your heart. That will actually kill you, and it can happen at any point in time, whether it's your first time, your second time, your third time, it doesn't matter. And I will just tell you, cocaine is the worst for this. That will definitively affect the rhythm of your heart, which is why people that have cocaine toxicity end up dying. There's a brain effect. I told you about the chemical reaction that's going to happen in your brain. Have you ever heard somebody say, stay away from that dude, he's crazy on drugs? Stay away from that dude, he's crazy on drugs. Bizarre behavior, you can't control him, terrible temper, potentially violent to other people, to you, to themselves, it doesn't matter. These are the things that can actually happen. Another thing that's very interesting is your body temperature can go way, way up or way, way down. You can't control that because it's happening in your brain. Now, here's another thing that's pretty interesting. Your brain doesn't fully develop until you're about the age of 24, 25 years old. You people at your age, not having a fully developed brain, the chances for something going sideways like this skyrocket with you guys. It's so important for you not to make those decisions, because you could end up not being able to speak clearly or having emotional problems. And you saw the pictures of the brain. That doesn't heal. It doesn't go away. It's not like your liver. You hurt your liver can actually regenerate. You can literally cut a piece of a liver out and it will regenerate and grow back. You can't do that with the brain. You ever heard of a brain transplant? No, you haven't, because they don't exist. You get one shot up here, and if you ruin that, it's ruined for life. Here's a couple cases that, in every case that I'm going to talk about, every story I'm going to tell you, I have personal involvement with. These are cases I know about because I worked them. But here's a 22-year-old kid. He took something, don't even know what he took, but he had a seizure. They get him to the hospital. His blood his temperature is 100. What did it say? 105.3. You remember I told you your temperature can go way up or way down? And by the way, if I'm telling you the story, it resulted in death. We don't have anything but that. 33-year-old guy, he's doing methamphetamine. He ends up with what's called an anoxic brain injury, very common. You know what that means? It means the drug literally caused the brain to start to swell. Where's it going to go? There's no room for swelling in your brain. So I've seen plenty of times where we end up going in hospital operating room where they would cut a chunk of somebody's skull this big to allow the brain to swell outside of the cavity. That's how much your brain will swell. You don't want that to happen, I promise. Downers are different. That's things that are, your heroin, the OxyContin, which seems to be very popular, fentanyl. What happens there is it will affect your central nervous system to the point where the drive to breathe will go away, which sounds kind of crazy, but I've seen dozens of people that literally shot heroin in their arms, and they just stopped breathing. We go to investigate the death, and the needle's still sticking in the arm. They didn't even have time to enjoy their high before their central nervous system shut down the drive to breathe. It's unbelievable. That's how potent these drugs are that people are playing with out there. It will shut down your breathing. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. I know what you're going to answer, but here's the question. Do you ever think you'd be in a position that you would shoot heroin in your body with a needle? Think about it. Do you ever think you'd be in a position to do that? Most people would say, oh, no, there's no way. But OxyContin, fentanyl, it's mostly the pills that get you high, the painkillers that are very prevalent nowadays. Let me tell you what happens. You've seen the same things. You ever seen those Dateline shows or 60-minute shows where there's a group of very rich kids in the East Coast, and the whole neighborhood, there's a bunch of people dying of heroin overdoses? You know what I'm talking about. I've seen plenty of shows like that. How does that happen? I'll tell you how it happens. They start taking these painkillers, and then you either can't get them or they become too expensive, and you only have one other option. And, here's a good example. OxyContin, you can become addicted almost immediately. Have you ever heard of genetic predisposition? It's what you may be genetically predisposed to. You have no idea what you could genetically be predisposed to. And so you take that OxyContin thinking you're just do it recreationally with your friends and you just get this little high, and all of a sudden something happens in your brain and it's, I like this. This is awesome. I feel so good. And now all you want to do is continue to do that. But it's so highly addictive that you can actually go from a quarter pill up to 8 pills a day within a matter of months only, because your body is developing a tolerance to that. Well, now you're up to 8 pills a day. The problem is on the street, this is what happens. On the street, they're $45 to $55 a pill. You're up to 8 pills a day. Let me ask you, do you have $400 laying around for your new habit that you have to have every single day? You don't. That's when you turn to heroin. You know why? Because it only costs $5 or $10 to get high on heroin. It doesn't cost as much as this does, and you're stuck because you're addicted. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to tell you what happened to me, and this is how innocent it could be. I don't do drugs. I don't do drugs. I've seen for 22 years the implications of drugs, but I had a bad shoulder, and I had to have a surgery, and my doctor gave me painkillers. And he said, you have to take these if you don't stay on top, because, I mean, you know, surgery and the whole bit. And I'm thinking, okay, well, I don't really want to do these things. And I even asked one of the doctors I work with, I don't understand why people get hooked on painkillers, because this is like nasty. I don't even like it. And he says, well, and this is interesting. He said, people that take the painkillers when they don't need them, like you need them because you had a shoulder surgery. The people that don't need them, that's when you get that euphoric high. When you need them, they just do their job. But what happened with me is this is the way insurance works nowadays. You go through rehab for probably 2 months before they do the surgery. Then they do the surgery, and it takes another 2 months. So the bottom line is you're taking painkillers for like 4.5, 5 months long. And then all of a sudden I woke up one day, and I was out of painkillers, and I knew I didn't really need them, but I was like, what am I going to do? I got to get more painkillers. You become addicted that easy. I literally, once I realized, oh my gosh, they turned me into a drug addict, I think. All I was thinking about is, where am I going to get more of these things? It got to the point where I would just take one of the last ones I had and suck on it for a while to try and fool my body into relaxing so that I could even sleep at night. I would wake up in the middle of the night, and your body is almost convulsing because it wants those drugs so bad. Again, this is somebody that doesn't do drugs. It just happened. That's how careful that you have to be. So that's how you can, like I asked you a minute ago, do you ever think you'd be in a position where you would shoot heroin and no way, that's crazy. No, it's not so crazy, is it? Happens to a lot of people a lot of times. Now, there was a point in time where, especially now, with all these drugs coming in, that people tend to make. There's people that are going to school and getting a chemistry degree just so they can learn how to create drugs, and then they sell them on the black market. Now, what happens is, especially with fentanyl, have you ever seen a fatal dose of fentanyl? I'm sure you've heard about it. Well, I have this vial that they usually put blood in, and the tox lab put a fatal dose of fentanyl in there for me so I could show people. There's too many to pass it around here, but this vial of blood, you got to hold it up into the light and twist it just to even see the 2 grains of fentanyl that's in there. That's a fatal dose. There's a documented case that I know of where a kid in Florida was messing around with fentanyl. He died of a drug overdose from messing around with fentanyl. The paramedics took him away, took him to the hospital as a courtesy to his grandmother who he lived with. Grandma goes in there. She has a rag, and she sees some white powder on his counter. She wipes the white powder with a rag. It absorbs through her hand and killed her by simply using a rag and wiping it. That's how potent fentanyl is. Do you know, here's something I want you to think about and understand how bad this deal is in San Diego County. There's 365 days in a year, right? Guess how many fentanyl deaths we had just in our county last year alone? 850. Let that sink in. 850 people in San Diego County alone died last year of a fentanyl overdose. That's more. 2 a day is 700. 850. You got to be really, really careful. Our investigators that go out and investigate death, we don't even touch drugs anymore. You got to glove up, you got to mask up, you got to carry Narcan, which is where you breathe it in to pull you out of a stupor if you fall into it by just having it in the air. That's how dangerous drugs are nowadays.
This kid died from using illegal
Not
drugs.
gonna work? Sound?
And this kid died from using prescription painkillers. Now you tell me.
Well, wait a minute. Let's try it again. Oh, wait a minute. I forgot to make the point. So here's the point. So people get these drugs and they copy them and they sell them on the street. Now you look at those drugs on the left. This is a 30 milligram Oxycontin, which is just a regular painkiller. You look on the right. That's just the front, that's the back. The front looks exactly the same as the right. So your friends are messing around with these, and you decide that you're going to take one. Which one's real? Which one's the Oxycontin? You just in your own mind, I want you to think about that. You got front and back. Pick which one in your mind you think is the real one. Okay, you ready? If you didn't pick the white one and you decided to take one of the blue ones, you're dead. You're dead. No second chances. No second chances. But yet, OxyContin is prescribed by a doctor typically. So this makes a good point.
This kid died from using illegal drugs. And this kid died from using prescription painkillers. Now you tell me, which one's more dead?
Doesn't matter if your doctor gave them to you. It doesn't mean you can abuse them. You got to be really, really careful. Here's a couple cases that, you know, this kid, 18 years old, she tried heroin just one time. She got talked into it by some friends one time. That's all it takes. One time. This guy's got 5 different drugs in his system. How do I know that? Because anybody that comes in, we're going to take your blood, we're going to test it, we're going to know everything that's in your blood, and we're going to know the exact levels of what that drug is. So this guy's partying up with his friends, and this is what they found on the kitchen floor the next morning. 20-year-old guy had a heroin problem. He went through rehab, did okay, but then he got weak one night, went out and bought some heroin, and this is the way he's found. I knew this guy's parents. His dad called me. Tears, broken, a broken man. I'm like, what happened, bro? He says, my son's in your office. This pain, it just never goes away, ever. Daddy's got methadone in the refrigerator. He's out of town. I think I'll try it. Sure seems to mellow him out. Let me just try it one time. Methamphetamine. Methamphetamine is, I mean, you can just see the before and after. If you want to see more, just go home and Google faces of meth. That's all you got to do. That's where I got a lot of these pictures. But you got to look at the transition, where people start and where they end up. She looks partially decomposed on the right. Just a kid, you know, a year and a half. That kind of change can happen. It's so sad. You can go from looking like a mom to a granny in 2.5 years if you want to do methamphetamine. Look at this guy. This guy's, that guy on the left, you know, before it really kicked in, I wouldn't want to tick that guy off. Know what I mean? Wouldn't want that dude mad at me. But look at the guy on the right. Same guy. Look at his eyes. You see anything? No, you don't. His life is gone. You can see it in the picture. This is how far it can go. That's literally called meth mouth. Isn't that pretty? Kiss me, honey. It will, and here's the point. Look, we've had bodies that have been exhumed after 100 years. You dig them up for whatever reason. The teeth are fine, being buried for 100 years. But look what methamphetamine will do. And my question to you that you should consider is, if it's going to do this to your teeth, which can last 100 years underground, imagine what it's doing to the rest of your body and how it can drastically affect that. You know what that is? You see that big spot up there? You've heard of an aneurysm, right? So this guy did methamphetamine, and this is how we document cause and manner of death. You have a dead person, you don't know what happened to him, so you got to look inside and see what you find. Part of a normal autopsy is you got to take the brain out and take a look at it. What that's indicative of is this guy did methamphetamine. We knew that because it was in his toxicology, and his blood pressure went up so fast and so severe that it literally blew a gasket in his brain, and his brain blood vessel just exploded, and there is the definitive cause and manner of death.
This is why you don't do drugs. Oh, you're fine. I'm looking for a recipe anyway.
What are you looking at? What recipe?
Pinterest.
Huh?
I have some stuff on Pinterest.
Pinterest?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, there's so many ways you can make that. Wait. It's like, chef, I'm a cook. That's why I said that. Here, I found a box back from the cheese. Great.
Oh. Nah,
Oh, shut up, I know, I'm late. Quit it!
Isn't that crazy? I mean, look at that behavior. But that's normal for her now. That's what methamphetamine has done to her brain. She doesn't know the difference between just chilling out. That's just a normal way for her.
And so right now what I want to talk about is my friend, Paul Doernberg. They call him the Tattoo Bandit. The footage that you're going to see in this episode is a live footage from KUSI. That was my crime partner. Me and him doing crime together, but because of one right choice in my life, I went down this path and he kept going down this path, which landed him 678 years.
He was identified as 33-year-old Paul Doernberg of Lemon Grove, an ex-convict with a history of methamphetamine addiction. As police agencies across the county searched for Doernberg, his wife and mother were pleading with him to surrender. Shortly after noon, Doernberg's brother Jeff met us at a condominium complex in Mission Gorge. He told us Paul Doernberg was afraid and that he just wanted to give up quietly.
Okay.
Hi.
Camera's on.
Bring Paul out now.
No one's gonna hurt you with the camera on, okay? He's got you on camera.
Just stand right here. It's okay.
Brother's going easy.
All right. You know the things they're saying about you.
Say you're
not a bad guy. Bad person.
your
I'm
piece.
just a drug addict. I want to say publicly right now to everybody that I hurt meaning that when I put the gun to him and said I was going to hurt him, then I am very sorry. I am very sorry.
Doernberg is the prime suspect in a series of robberies. He has served 13 of his 33 years in prison. He blames it all on methamphetamine.
I'm a totally good person. I just do bad things when I'm under the influence of drugs. I'll tell you right now, that methamphetamine is the devil. It is the devil.
Good. Speak to kids. Speak to
Them
people.
kids out there need to know that if you mess with that stuff, it's gonna get you. It's had a grip on me for 17 years, and I haven't been able to let it go for nothing. And I'm telling you, kids, if you're out there, if you're listening, please, please do not mess with that stuff under any circumstances, because it gives you a false sense of security that you would not believe.
Paul Doernberg faces 16 counts of armed robbery. Because of his prior felonies, he could face a lengthy prison term under the three strikes law. He's off the streets now, and that's where police want him to be.
678 years. The guy that introduced that video is a good friend of mine. He's local in San Diego. His name's Dennis Martinez. He goes to prison and talks to lifers and helps them when they get out. And so I know this guy, and he's legit. And that was his running partner. By the way, the decision he made where they went two separate ways, Dennis Martinez accepted Christ as his Lord and Savior, and that revolutionized and changed his life and the way he does things. But there's no judgment here. So even on his friend, he's just going to help him as best he can. But imagine 678 years. Can you even wrap your mind around that? That's what methamphetamine cost him. But the most telling part of that, I'm just going to repeat his words because they were powerful to me. I'm not a bad guy. I just do bad things on drugs. You hear that? There's a message there. I'm not a bad guy. I just do bad things on drugs. But it doesn't always end poorly, because believe it or not, that's the before and that's the after. So even if you get caught up in some things, you can get some help, you can reach out, you can allow the Lord to be active in your life, and he can pull you out of these things in a beautiful way. For those of you that may be dabbling in cigarettes, and hey, you want to smoke? You're going to smoke. You're probably at the age now, I don't know what they do nowadays. Anybody could smoke, but even cigarettes. You guys know anybody with asthma? Okay, you guys know a few people with asthma. I asked a doctor that I work with, I said, what's asthma like? Because I've never had it. And he said, Joe, it's like taking a pin, you know the pin that you write with? And you take the end off and you know a little hole where the point comes out? He said, it's like put that in your mouth and try and breathe through it. Imagine that, right? That'd be pretty hard, wouldn't it? Well, he says that's what asthma's like. So if you want to smoke cigarettes, that's an 18-year-old kid on the left. I know that for a fact, but that's what your lungs are supposed to look like. Nice, pink, fleshy, very viable. The one on the right is a bit asthmatic and maybe emphysemic. But could you imagine that's like trying to breathe out of a straw. So if you want to smoke cigarettes, that's not going to happen overnight, and maybe it won't even happen to you. But things that you have to consider is, do you really want to start going down that road and see if that's what you want to try and breathe with for the rest of your life? Here's something that we're finding more and more and more of that just kind of blows me away. You guys know what huffing is? Okay, you know the cans of air that you put on your computer and you just blow the dust off, which is where a lot of it gets its name, dust off? For some reason, people figured out that if you breathe that, you can get high. And so that it's called huffing. This guy happens to be a United States Marine. Nothing but respect for what he did. But this is exactly as we found him when we went to go investigate the death. Now, I've talked to multiple people, and some like, hey, has anybody ever huffed at this class that I hold, and a couple, oh yeah, I used to do it all the time. I'm like, well, can you explain it? Because I don't understand it. I really don't. Why do people do it? He said, well, you take a hit of this stuff, and you get this dizzy, euphoric feeling, and then, this is what he said, then your brain goes wah, wah, wah. Okay, then what? That's it, man. Then you do it again. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. What? That's it. That's the only high you get, this dizzy, euphoric feeling, wah, 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 and that's what's going to cost you your life? I mean, it's very prevalent. And most people that do it have 2 or 3 cans around. They've done it quite a bit. We've seen many people that are sitting at a bus stop with a backpack on, and we investigate and look through the backpack, and there's 3 or 4 empties in there. Let me just tell you this. I'll leave you with this. Don't ever, ever, ever consider inhaling anything of a chemical nature. I promise you, I promise you, I promise you, it won't end well. Never inhale something of a chemical nature. Have you ever even done painting or glue, and you're doing a model or whatever, and you just get dizzy from smelling fumes? You know, it's not good, and it'll hurt you bad. This is a 16-year-old kid. His parents were out of town. He had some buddies come over, and they were drinking. They were drinking pretty hard. And, you know, if you get yourself in this situation, the first thing that's going to happen is, you know, you're going to pass out, and you see the felt marker up there on the corner, so his friends are going to write "lost" on his forehead and make fun of him because, you know, maybe the next day at school he's pretty well hung over, but guess what? He didn't wake up. He didn't wake up. He's only 16. We're talking about alcohol here. I'm not talking about cocaine or meth or things of that. We're just talking about alcohol. 16-year-old kid. Now, I'll tell you what. You don't drink that kind of stuff and guzzle it as a 16-year-old kid and think you're going to be okay. But this is a legal substance. You could walk less than 10 or 15 minutes and be able to buy any alcohol. Maybe not at your age. You shouldn't, but I'm just saying it's readily available. Even things that aren't supposed to harm you can harm you if anything you do in excess. Okay? Anything you do in excess is going to harm you. Even good things. You can't survive without eating, right? You've seen people that abuse that, and they eat excessively. It's unhealthy. You're going to pay a price. Even good things. If you walk the rest of your life knowing and living that anything you do in excess is going to harm you, you're going to be pretty good. You'll be okay. There's where alcohol can lead you if you want to start drinking. I mean, take a look. That's nothing but a severe alcoholic in the way they were found. You got feces all over your house, all over yourself. You just don't care. You just don't care. You're shot. And I'll tell you what, one of the things that shocks me, it's not always a house like this that looks like that. I've been in some houses that I can't even describe to you in Rancho Santa Fe, where you take a right and you're going down a driveway, and the driveway alone is 3/4 of a mile before you even see the house that looks like a palace. It looks like a hotel. These people are so rich. But they're laying on the floor just like this lady in almost the same shape because alcohol took over their life. This is a pretty interesting case to me because this guy's mom, he died, but this guy's mom literally said, Joe, if you ever talk to kids about doing drugs, I want you to talk about my son. Because he was the greatest kid. He was so good. I love him so much. He was my everything. And he was doing so well in school, but he got into drugs. Now, you see that kid? Look at that. 6 months later, same kid. You see the change? You see, that's what happens when you start doing drugs. You start changing, but you don't notice it because it's such a slow process. Your habits change, your attitude changes, your schooling changes, your friends certainly change. Everything about you changes, but you don't know it because you're not even realizing it. Everybody else is seeing it. You ever heard of spice? You talk about breathing something. I mean, this is some stuff that will. This is where people literally will eat somebody's face off, and I'm not joking. It will twist your mind in a way. But you know, you talk about the devil trying to get to people your age or anybody's age to destroy their life. It's almost ridiculous. What's that look like? Anybody? Looks like marijuana, doesn't it? I mean, it looks like green tobacco. Well, it's not, they try and make it look like marijuana. You know what that is? It's shredded cardboard. It's shredded cardboard, and then they spray a chemical on there that people smoke, and it makes you literally crazy. You see how deceptive this is? It's shredded cardboard that people are smoking with a chemical on it. The FDA literally enacted a ban where couldn't get it for a while, but now if you get caught with that stuff, spice, it's literally just like getting caught with cocaine or methamphetamine. You might want to stay away from that. I got to talk about accidents a little bit, because really a lot of the accidents that we deal with, that I personally have to deal with, are really just the results of bad decisions that people just didn't think through or realize the implications of what their behavior may potentially lead. This is a couple that was going out to dinner celebrating an anniversary. They're driving home, and some drunk driver ended up coming across the center divider, smashed into their car, and killed them both. And this is the person that hit them. She literally had a friend in the passenger seat and two in the back seat as well, who were taken to UCSD with severe to critical injuries, their lives to never be the same. But let me tell you the story about how it got to be this way. You guys know what a designated driver is? Yeah, right? Okay, so if you're going to go out drinking and you're going to have a designated driver, you're kind of doing the right thing. Fair enough? So, okay, you're going to go out and you're going to get hammered, you know, but you have a driver that's going to drive you around so everybody's safe. Well, the problem is the designated driver you're looking at, she decided she couldn't quit drinking for one night, so she goes up to the bar, takes a couple shots every couple hours, and then buys a soda to make her friends think she's not driving. Well, they're so drunk when they leave that bar that they don't notice how drunk she is. They get in the car, and now you got 3 dead people and 3 people with their lives to never be the same. Why? Because somebody couldn't quit drinking for just one night? I can't miss out on that kind of fun? These are the things that we're dealing with. These are the things I don't want you guys to ever have to deal with, even if it's your friends that you hear about. This guy's up on that overpass. He's on a motorcycle, and he doesn't want a speeding ticket. The cop turns the lights on, and he's going to pull him over and give him a speeding ticket, but he figures, well, I'm on a motorcycle. You can't catch me. Later, phew, he takes off. He ends up hitting the guardrail. The bike goes down, but guess what? He happens to have his sister on the back of that bike, and when he hit that guardrail, all the way down, a couple hundred feet, she, of course, died in that accident. Why? Because he didn't want a speeding ticket. Now, think about going home and telling mom and dad, sister's gone. What happened? I didn't want a speeding ticket? How do you explain that? Now, did he mean to do that? No way, man. No way. No way. He didn't mean to do that, but he did it. And so guess what? He gets 20 years in prison for murdering, whatever, manslaughter, whatever you want to title it, his own sister. So mom and dad really lost both kids that day, didn't they? Because one's gone for 20 years, and the other one's really gone. Whoop. So this is Santee, right down the street. Mass Boulevard. Guy in a white truck. He's a good family man, works a construction job. He's coming home after, this is actually on a Saturday, about 2:30 in the afternoon. He's heading home. And the guy in the red car decided he was going to drag race a buddy of his, and he lost control, came across, and hit the guy in the truck. And by the way, he happened to kill his best friend, who was a passenger. You know, this happens all the time, but this is right down the street. Right down the street. Now, you know what I think about, though, when this stuff happens? Oh, by the way, I have to go tell this guy's mom and dad that their son's dead. You know what? I really don't like doing that. I hate doing that, man. With a passion, I hate doing that. But I give them the dignity and the respect that they deserve, and I take care of them as best I can. But it breaks my heart. It takes part of your soul away when you have to go tell a mom and a dad that their son or daughter's dead. It eats your soul. I hate doing that. But what I really think about is, ooh, bam, the guy in the white truck. You want to know why? Because that guy's like you and me. He's doing the right thing. Oh, there we go. There's the culprit. He's doing the right thing. He's worked 6 days this week. This is a Saturday. He worked all week, and he worked on Saturday, and he's coming home, and now this kid comes across the center divider and changes his life forever. That's his work truck. Let me ask you a couple questions. These are the things I think about. Does he have insurance to pay for the damage on his truck? I don't know. Does he have health insurance to pay for that $1 million hospital bill? I don't know. Is he going to be in rehab for 6 months and now he can't feed his family and they lose their house and they're out on the street living underneath an overpass in Santee now? I don't know. Is he going to get addicted to painkillers like I almost did or probably did? And now he can't work or function because of his everything was beautiful going home on a Saturday afternoon. Probably going to take little mama out to dinner, get up the next day, have a barbecue, watch a couple ball games, rest up, go to church, do it all again. Just a good dude taking care of his family. I don't know. Pretty obvious why this accident happened, right? But there's a 16-year-old young lady who's pregnant with her first baby and her mom and dad's first grandchild. They didn't have any milk for dinner, so mom said, "Honey, can you go down to the store and get a gallon of milk?" And she says, "Sure, Mom, no problem." She walks down to the store. She's walking home carrying a gallon of milk. This guy drives by, blasts into her, and kills her. Horrible, horrible. Now, let me tell you a little something about the court system. He got charged with homicide for doing this because he was drunk, okay? But she's pregnant. Now, this kind of baffles me because she can go out and get an abortion, and who cares? That's legal. You can get it done, right? But yet, do you know that he got charged twice? because he killed a human. Well, wait a minute. It's tissue if you want to have an abortion, but it's murder if you get in a car accident? Yeah. What are you going to do about it? Nothing you can do about it. Just weird law. So this guy, he thinks he's just out, having a little fun, and he kills 2 people. You text and drive? You guys, this many people in this room, probably at least half of you. And I'll be honest, I've done it. Every time I do it and my wife's in the car, she says, "Oh, you tell everybody else not to," right? And I appreciate it. I go, "Yeah, you're right. But we don't think about the implications of what can happen. So this is a public service announcement.
Hi, Dave.
From Australia.
My mate Jules fancies you.
Cass.
It's not a funny.
It's not even funny now.
Let me just get his number.
Ring an ambulance! Ring an ambulance! Stay still. I can't open the door. I've rung an ambulance.
We've got other people on the route to help, okay?
Look straight at me for a second.
3 vehicles have been involved. Right. 2 people in the vehicle there. I can't get any response out of them whatsoever.
The ones in the front or the ones in the front?
Mommy, Daddy, wake up! Mommy, Daddy, wake up!
Right, I just can't get any response whatsoever.
I want Mommy and Daddy to wake up.
Any pain in your neck at all? You're nice and still for me. Alright, keep looking at me. Alright. Cassie, can you hear me? What's your friend's name in the back? What is it? Jules, is it? Nice and still there for me. Yes.
Last thing I want to touch on is marijuana. When a government legalizes something, what they're telling you is it's okay. And that's a lie. That is a blatant lie, because research shows, and we don't really need to debate it, but there's two things that marijuana will do for you long term if you want to smoke it. Number one, it will make you make really bad decisions, and it will make you lazy. And I think you guys are all much better than that and have much more than that to look forward to. And here's the research. There's a part of your brain, this is what I want you guys to understand, is 18 to 25-year-olds who smoke pot recreationally. We're not talking about some guy that's sitting around doing bongs all day. There's significant brain abnormalities in the brain. There's something that changes in the brain that definitively controls emotion and motivation, literally. So that's the lazy part. Also, there's a part in your brain that think about what a great gift this is, where you find pleasure. What a gift, right? Well, you're changing that. And also the decision making. You're going to tend to make worse decisions. So even something that the government tells you is okay and it may be legal can very much adversely affect you. Teenagers who smoke marijuana daily are 7 times more likely to commit suicide. Does that mean they're going to? No, absolutely not. But statistics show, which is quantifiable, you're 7 times more likely, 60% less likely to finish high school, and it is absolutely a gateway drug, which means you start with marijuana, you tend to progress to more dangerous drugs if you start doing that. I'm going to give you just a couple marijuana decisions to show how blatantly bad they can be. This guy's uncle jumped off a 6-story building about 6 months prior, so he thought he'd try it and see what it's like. That's a marijuana decision. There's other guys, 14-year-old kid, he was known as a punk. I'm not calling him a punk, he was known as a punk, but he would smoke pot all the time, got kicked out of school and sent home. Mom's a nurse, she's getting ready to go to work, and she says, "What are you doing home?" He says, "I got kicked out of school again." She goes, "For what?" "Smoking pot." She says, "Are you kidding me?" And so she starts really yelling at this kid, thinking she's disciplining him. He reaches over, she was a deputy sheriff, he reaches over and grabs her gun, puts it to his own head, and pulls the trigger. 14 years old. That's a marijuana decision. Another guy works for his dad at a construction site. His dad got mad at him and fired him. I mean, seriously, dude, you'll have your job back tomorrow. It's your dad. But he goes into his dad's room and takes his own life just to show his dad, "I'll show you." That is a marijuana decision. I want you guys to look at this, though. This is really important. You can ask your parents when you get home if this is true or untrue, but all of us, myself included, are where we are at today based on decisions we've made in the past. Think about that. We're all where we're at based on decisions we've made in the past. Maybe not so for you guys yet because you're so young, but you will have to admit this at one day, no matter where you're at, good or bad. You're there based upon decisions that you've made in the past. Now, okay, that was a lot. I'm gonna end with this, but first question is, did I prove everything that I told you? Anybody have an argument against that? Okay. Well, I didn't, but I'm going to. I just wanted to see if you'd catch it. I started this whole thing by telling you that you have 2 things going for you: tremendous value and tremendous potential. I just want to see if you'd catch it. I haven't proved that. That's kind of a statement of opinion. But I am going to prove it because there's no difference between you guys and these people potentially.
After being cut from his high school basketball team, he went home, locked himself in his room, and cried. He wasn't able to speak until he was almost 4 years old, and his teachers said he would never amount to much. Was demoted from her job as a news anchor because she wasn't fit for television. Fired from a newspaper for lacking imagination and having no original ideas. At age 11, he was cut from his team after being diagnosed with a growth hormone deficiency, which made him smaller in stature than most kids his age. At 30 years old, he was left devastated and depressed after being unceremoniously removed from the company he started. A high school dropout whose personal struggles with drugs and poverty culminated in an unsuccessful suicide attempt. A teacher told him he was too stupid to learn anything and that he should go into a field where he might succeed by virtue of his pleasant personality. Rejected by Decca Recording Studios, who said, "We don't like their sound. They have no future in show business." His first book was rejected by 27 publishers. His fiancée died, failed in business, had a nervous breakdown, and was defeated in 8 elections. If you've never failed, you've never tried anything new.
Isn't that awesome? Isn't that awesome? So, you guys are going to eat in 10 minutes, so I'm kind of walking on holy ground here. I'm going to cut this off. Let me pray for you. Lord, thank you for these beautiful souls that are here. Pray for each and every individual, each family represented, that you would walk with them as a friend, that you would give them wisdom for the future, massage their hearts, get rid of the things that are bothersome, but let it stick in their mind the reality of what we talked about tonight, and supernaturally bless them in the future. In Jesus' name.